London Pride, Canterbury Bells, and a multitude of other choice blooms of which only Angus could have told you the names. A conscientious man was Angus, and in spite of being a good deal hampered by Lord Emsworth's amateur assistance, he showed excellent results in his department. In his beds there was much at which to point with pride, little to view with concern. Scarcely had Beach removed himself when Lord Emsworth was called upon to turn again. The door had opened for the second time, and a young man in a beautifully cut suit of grey flannel was standing in the doorway. He had a long and vacant face, topped by shining hair brushed back and heavily brilliantined after the prevailing mode, and he was standing on one leg, for Freddie Threepwood was seldom completely at his ease in his parents' presence. "Hello, Governor." "Well, Frederick?" It would be paltering with the truth to say that Lord Emsworth's greeting was a warm one. It lacked the note of true affection. A few weeks before, he had had to pay a matter of £500 to settle certain racing debts for his offspring, and while this had not actually dealt an irretrievable blow at his bank account, it had undeniably tended to diminish Freddie's charm in his eyes. "Here you've lost your glasses, Governor." "That is so." "Nuisance, what?" "Undeniably. Ought to have a spare pair." "I've broken my spare pair." "Tough luck. And lost the other?" "And as you say, lost the other." "Have you looked for the bally things?" "I have." "Must be somewhere, I mean." "Quite possibly." "Where?" asked Freddie, warming to his work. "Did you see them last?" "Go away," said Lord Emsworth, on whom his child's conversation had begun to exercise an oppressive effect. "Eh?" "Go away." "Go away?" "Yes, go away." "Right-ho." The door closed. His lordship returned to the window once more. He had been standing there some few minutes when one of those miracles occurred which happen in libraries. Without sound or warning, a section of books started to move away from the parent body, and, swinging out in a solid chunk into the room, showed the glimpse of a small, study-like apartment. A young man in spectacles came noiselessly through, and the books returned to their place. The contrast between Lord Emsworth and the newcomer, as they stood there, was striking, almost dramatic. Lord Emsworth was so acutely spectacleless. Rupert Baxter, his secretary, so pronouncedly spectacled. It was his spectacles that struck you first as you saw the man. They gleamed efficiently at you. If you had a guilty conscience, they pierced you through and through, and even if your conscience was 100% pure, you could not ignore them. Here, you said to yourself, is an efficient young man in spectacles. In describing Rupert Baxter as efficient, you did not overestimate him. He was essentially that. Technically, but a salaried subordinate, he had become by degrees, owing to the limp amiability of his employer, the real master of the house. He was the brains of Blandings, the man at the switch, the person in charge, and the pilot, so to speak, who weathered the storm. Lord Emsworth left everything to Baxter, only asking to be allowed to potter in peace, and Baxter, more than equal to the task, shouldered it without wincing. Having got within range, Baxter coughed, and Lord Emsworth, recognizing the sound, wheeled round with a faint flicker of hope. It might be that even this apparently insoluble problem of the missing pince-nez would yield before the other's efficiency. "Baxter, my dear fellow, I've lost my glasses. I've mislaid them. I cannot think where they can have got to. You haven't seen them anywhere by any chance?" "Yes, Lord Emsworth," replied the secretary, quietly equal to the crisis. "They are hanging down your back." "Down my back? Why, bless my soul." His lordship tested the statement and found it, like all Baxter's statements, accurate. "Why, bless my soul, so they are. You know, Baxter, I really believe I must be growing absent-minded." He hauled in the slack, secured the pince-nez, adjusted them beamingly. His irritability had vanished like the dew off one of his roses. "Thank you, Baxter, thank you. You're invaluable." and with a radiant smile, Lord Emsworth made buoyantly for the door, en route for God's air and the society of McAllister. The movement drew from Baxter another cough, a sharp, peremptory cough this time, and his lordship paused reluctantly, like a dog whistled back from the chase. A cloud fell over the sunniness of his mood. Admirable as Baxter was in so many respects, he had a tendency to worry him at times, and something told Lord Emsworth that he was going to worry him now. "The car will be at the door," said Baxter with quiet firmness, "at 2 sharp. "Car? What car?" "The car to take you to the station." "Station? What station?" Rupert Baxter preserved his calm. There were times when he found his employer a little trying, but he never showed it. "You have perhaps forgotten, Lord Emsworth, that you arranged with Lady Constance to go to London this afternoon." "Go to London?" gasped Lord Emsworth, appalled. "In weather like this? With 1,000 things to attend to in the garden? Oh, what a perfectly preposterous notion! Why should I go to London? I hate London." "You arranged with Lady Constance that you would give Mr. McTodd lunch tomorrow at your club." "Who the devil's Mr. McTodd?" "The well-known Canadian poet." "Never heard of him." "Lady Constance has long been a great admirer of his work. She wrote inviting him, should he ever come to England, to pay a visit to Blandings. He is now in London, and is to come down tomorrow for 2 weeks. Lady Constance's suggestion was that, as a compliment to Mr. McTodd's eminence in the world of literature, you should meet him in London and bring him back here yourself." Lord Emsworth remembered now. He also remembered that this positively infernal scheme had not been his sister Constance's in the first place. It was Baxter who had made the suggestion, and Constance had approved. He made use of the recovered pince-nez to glower through them at his secretary, and not for the first time in recent months was aware of a feeling that this fellow Baxter was becoming a dashed infliction. Baxter was getting above himself, throwing his weight about, and making himself a confounded nuisance. He wished he could get rid of the man, but where could he find an adequate successor? That was the trouble. With all his drawbacks, Baxter was efficient. Nevertheless, for a moment, Lord Emsworth toyed with the pleasant dream of dismissing him. And it is possible, such was his exasperation, that he might on this occasion have done something practical in that direction, had not the library door at this moment opened for the 3rd time to admit yet another intruder, at the sight of whom his lordship's militant mood faded weakly. "Oh, hello, Connie," he said guiltily, like a small boy caught in the jam cupboard. Somehow his sister always had this effect upon him. Of all those who had entered the library that morning, the new arrival was the best worth looking at. Lord Emsworth was tall and lean and scraggy. Rupert Baxter thick-set, and handicapped by that vaguely grubby appearance which is presented by swarthy young men of bad complexion. And even Beach, though dignified, and Freddie, though slim, would never have got far in a beauty competition. But Lady Constance Keble really took the eye. She was a strikingly handsome woman in the middle 40s. She had a fair, broad brow, teeth of a perfect even whiteness, and the carriage of an empress. Her eyes were large and grey and gentle, and incidentally misleading, for gentle was hardly the adjective which anybody who knew her would have applied to Lady Constance. Though genial enough when she got her way, on the rare occasions when people attempted to thwart her, she was apt to comport herself in a manner reminiscent of Cleopatra on one of the latter's bad mornings. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," said Lady Constance with a bright smile. "I just came in to tell you to be sure not to forget, Clarence, that you're going to London this afternoon to meet Mr. McTodd." "I was just telling Lord Emsworth," said Baxter, "that the car would be at the door at 2. "Thank you, Mr. Baxter. Of course, I might have known that you would not forget. You're so wonderfully capable. I don't know what in the world we'd do without you." The efficient Baxter bowed, but though gratified, he was not overwhelmed by the tribute. The same thought had often occurred to him independently. "If you will excuse me," he said, "I have 1 or 2 things to attend to." "Certainly, Mr. Baxter." The efficient one withdrew through the